right, welcome everybody to the June 18th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. One hearing on for tonight. It is a continuation from May the 7th, case number 18-27, 61 Endicott Street, the fitness facility. You guys are more than welcome to come up and join us here, please. Now, there's two letters of record, one from Diane Garrity Hall and one from a concerned neighbor, which would be
Okay, that's what it is?
Tony Esco.
Tony Esco, but I'm not, I thought I had them, I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, I think Tony wrote it. I don't think
Yeah,
Steve, Steve will probably claim he wrote it, but I think Tony wrote it.
Well, anyway, I do have a letter here somewhere from Tony. Should I read
Yeah,
that
there
in?
you
or
go.
just-
Yeah, you can.
All right.
Sure.
Well, let me read Tony's first, if we could. So, real quick, just a letter read into the record here. Dear zoning board members, as a matter of inclusivity, I would like to bring an appointment to your attention. We have been advocates of our neighborhood on Endicott Street for 37 years, since we moved here. On June 17th, Monday evening at 8 p.m., the planning board has agreed to our request Okay, this is to the zoning board and the conservation and planning board. So this is written to three different boards. The point of the letter is the current manufacturing zone, to her point, say, number one, does not work well for many types of uses that the owners would like to bring in, thus triggering numerous difficult special permit requests. Number two, does not support maximum pedestrian and traffic safety due to the obsolete industrial nature of the business building configurations. Number three, could still be used for 21st type, I assume that means century, type of manufacturing purposes that could bring in more chemical, flammable storage, noise, etc. Is the least compatible type of zone, number four, is the least compatible type of zone to be adjacent to residential areas? Number five, compromises the brook area which has not been properly and historically respected. Number seven, does not optimally promote, in our view, the author of this letter, the economic development potential of the parcel of this land, of this parcel of land. Lastly, without a cohesive plan, the current situation promotes constant business, occupant turnover, and increasing traffic pattern concerns of the neighborhood. Endicott Street is a growing young neighborhood with the addition of a new 112-unit condo development known as Endicott Woods. With the community preservation money, there is a sizable pavilion that will be built on Endicott Street on the conservation land, with the inclusion of 6 parking spaces, including handicap accessibility. It is being groomed as a pocket park, quote unquote. Future traffic growth is a real concern. I don't know what a pocket park is, if somebody wants to help me out, but moving forward. 3 years ago, after a large fire at the end of Davis Ave that straddled over the brook and caused terrible pollution and into the end of Endicott Street, we asked for a Norwood Commerce Review Committee that met for a little over a year. The town's boards are fully aware of the issues of this parcel of land and also the end of Davis Avenue, which is another area of manufacturing concern. When we first moved to Norwood, you could drive over the brook at the end of Endicott and enter into Davis Avenue and back up to Route 1A. That opening has been blocked for many years. Looking at the possibility of reopening that someday with proper improvements could also be looked into. The reason for us asking for the appointment with the that's more planning board.
With the planning, it was with the planning board, I think.
Right. Okay, so that's the basic gist of the letter. We appreciate your time. Sincerely, Steve and Tony Osco, District 5 Town Meeting members. If anybody wants to see a copy of that, I'll be glad to provide it for you. On the contrary, I do have a letter that we're all privy to that I'll also read in brief from Diane Garrity Hall, lawyer of record for the owner of the Norwood Commerce Center. correct? Yeah. Dear Zoning Board of Appeal, as you may recall, this office represents the Norwood Commerce Center, 61 Endicott Street. I am writing with respect to the application of Dan Jones and his proposed fitness center at the Norwood Commerce Center. The matter had been continued to Tuesday, June 18th, to allow for the proposed improvements to the parking area and the traffic patterns and lighting to be completed. I am pleased to report that the following improvements have been made at this time. Some of the improvements include the following. Number one, lighting project has been complete. 23 new LED lights have been installed throughout the center. Number two, the door to building 34, where the proposed fitness center is to be located, has been relocated to the side of the building adjacent to the parking lot. Concrete jersey barriers have been installed around building 34, for pedestrian traffic. The parking lot adjacent, number four, the parking lot adjacent to building 34 has been designated for fitness center parking. Number five, there is a designated crosswalk from the parking area to the fitness center entrance. Number six, the traffic pattern has been completed with the one-way designation. Signage on both the pavement and vertical posts have been installed. With time and reminders, the tenants are much more acclimated to this change. We would like to invite board members to visit the site. Again, now that the changes have been made, we would also be happy to meet anyone to show them around. Lastly, the board has requested a list of tenants at the center. The location attaches a list, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you for your, okay. All right, so, do you want to just introduce yourself one more time, Dan, for the record, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I'm Daniel Jones, applying for the permit.
Okay. All right, I'll start out for a minute. I did go up there, and I apologize, I didn't forward them to everybody, but I did take some pictures of, excuse me, the lighting, the signs, and
I actually have pictures for all of you. I have a set of a copy of 20 photos that I actually want. If you'd like, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
it's okay.
I'm sorry.
Doesn't
got
generally
excited.
help your cause, but that's all right.
So I took photos, had them all developed. I put them in a specific order, and there's one section that's a little confusing. So I was hoping that maybe we could run through it. I don't know if you want to do that now or.
We'll take a peek at it,
Sure.
definitely if necessary, but I'll take a peek at them. Let me say my piece first.
Absolutely, don't pardon me.
In respect to my fellow board members, okay, the concerns that have been brought forward are paramount, okay, unquestionably, specifically Mary's and Phil's points about the safety issues, again, paramount, okay? I will say that I personally was impressed with the improvements that were made up there, especially with the entrance. Did you guys drill, you had to cut that door into that wall? Okay, so that is huge, is an improvement, in my opinion. The one-way traffic, which was already there, but I think it's somewhat been established now. Whether it's a godsend or not remains to be seen, but nevertheless, I personally do think that compromise and accommodations have been made to great expense, especially by the owners of the property. I certainly want to see a business come in. I definitely want to hear the opinions of the fellow board members, without a doubt. But in my opinion, I don't know how much more compromise can be made to accommodate the wishes of the board. I don't know if we'll also get over the fear factor in regards to the driving. I think that's what the primary thing is. I did appreciate and like the fact of the Jersey barriers that now protect the walkway. I certainly like the new entrance and exit of the place being on the same side of the parking lot. And I did happen to notice and photograph the designated parking spaces for the fitness center. So with that being said, you know, I'm interested in hearing everybody else's opinion, but I did appreciate the fact that you guys certainly went to good lengths to accommodate our wishes to a certain degree. So moving forward, we'll go on, Tacky.
Well, yeah, I mean, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm gonna be very quick. I don't necessarily have a problem with what you're trying to do down there, Dan. I really don't. I was down there today at a nice meeting with the folks at the machine shop, your direct neighbor, nice people. They were kind of ambivalent to what you're proposing. Really, come see, come saw. They had some questions about the parking. I did find out that they, right, wrong, or indifferent, they did say when they get deliveries with 18-wheelers, the 18-wheelers have to go back down the one way because they can't get around the one way. They go back out the way they're not supposed to go out. So it's part of the buildings. You can't change the buildings unless you tear them down, but when they get a big delivery with 18-wheelers, they have to go back down the one way and go out the wrong way. Like I said, I don't have a particular problem with what you're trying to do, Dan, per se. But my problem, I guess, is what we've done in the past and the way we tried to set this, some sort of guidance with that park up down there, if you will. Remember when it all started years ago, it was coming out with grandiose plans of, mom and pop flea market type of thing, antiquers, smaller businesses. One of the things I noticed that Tony Osco, who I chatted with pretty much in depth recently about the complex, is that, and I'll paraphrase it, but I'll read it. If special permits for 7-day-a-week businesses with customer traffic are granted, other requests will very quickly follow. The antique shops are only allowed 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, for their business sales. Surely someone there will ask for more time eventually as well. And that's where I'm struggling with this, because I remember when we were on the road to allowing this, I may have had the gavel, or Phil may have had the gavel, I can't remember, but I said,
You had it.
yeah, I said I didn't want it to become a mall. I didn't want it to become a,
It's a random flea market.
yeah, I didn't
as I
want it to,
recall.
yeah, I didn't, yeah, the random flea, and because we have a neighborhood there. And I just don't know if it's the type of place for a 7-day-a-week business. Albeit, I just don't think you're going to generate the trip traffic that would cause a problem down there. And again, like I said, I was down there today. I circled the whole lot. I walked around. I saw the gym parking only pylons. I spoke with, I forget the fellow's name that was there 2 weeks ago, and he was just securing the Jersey barrier, the wooden barriers into the brook, screwing them down a while back. And so I've seen the progress, and I applaud you for what you've done down there. I just have what I'm struggling with is that if we allow a 7-day-a-week new entity down there, is the proverbial door opening up for others? And I guess I have to answer that in my clouded head right now. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Jack?
I'm very familiar with the site. I used to work down there when I was in high school. And anyway, I was there again today. I've been there many times. I think it's sort of, there's a lot going on down there now. It's not comfortable driving through there. And I did go into a dead end spot. But anyway, that was probably my fault. The good thing I did today, there was a sun turtle going across the street, which I trying to get over a curb. So I did lift, I stopped, and I picked him up, and he hissed, and I put him on the other side, onto the pond, and I thought that was my...
Good duty of the day.
But
Yeah.
I just think it was so confusing down there, and that was my problem. I'd like to see it keep going as it's going, but to me, it was out of control down there.
It's a busy place.
It's extremely busy, and I do have a driver's license. And
Really?
I did go down a couple of spots with dead ends, and I'm thinking, the place is crazy. I mean, it's not like a controlled environment. But I like the idea that we're taking old mill buildings. Like I said, I used to work for a company called Forte Fairburn as a kid. And it seemed like it was more controlled back then. Now it seems like everything's going on. I must have gone down 15 dead-end driveways. I just think it's confusing and something's gotta be done down there. But I like the idea of the development going on. But I think it's out of control.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
What are we doing? Have we closed the hearing? Are we deliberating? Do we have questions for the applicant? I mean, it sounds like we're deliberating, but as far as I know, we haven't closed the hearing. Wouldn't we appropriately close the hearing before we deliberate, or? I mean, I don't have any
Yeah.
I mean, if the board obviously has questions of the applicant, then they need to be asked while the hearing's open.
Correct.
But if we're
Oh, good
at a point now where we're discussing and deliberating, I would think maybe it doesn't matter a whole lot, but I would think procedurally, we'd close the hearing before we start deliberating. I don't know, but I'll leave it to the
What else?
board to decide what to do.
What else
about
can you
that.
add before we go on to the next? And by the way, he's absolutely right, so that's my fault. But
No,
what can you add to help it out?
so, I hear your concerns, right? And I'll try to address them, each one, right? The way
I have no objection to the applicant speaking, but this is one of the problems that I was coming at. When we close a hearing and we deliberate, it's the board that deliberates, and the applicant doesn't kick in on the deliberation. As you may recall, we've had more than a few disputes with David Hearn over the years. Sorry, David, but you do tend to intervene. And we've had to tell David that we're deliberating and the hearing is over, which is why, and I've no problem with him speaking, but just from
I'll
a
tell you what,
procedural
Be
perspective.
more specific on what you
I think we
thought
should
might be
kind of
confusing.
keep it a little
in the
bit in
picture.
line.
Very good point. Be more specific on what you thought could be confusing in one of the pictures or some of the pictures, please.
Yeah, sure, talk about the pictures, yeah.
Yeah. Didn't you say some of the pictures
Yeah.
you thought might be confusing?
So there's 4 photos in particular that I took from the before and after that I took from drone footage and from Google Earth, the satellite picture. And it basically shows it's just a little confusing because you need to rotate a couple of the photos, but it basically shows the extra parking spaces that have been put in, a new lot. Other than that, it's not, if you don't want to hear more than that, I don't need to go into detail. However, I was under the impression that today was also continuance, so I did kind of want to present
It is
what
a
has been.
continuance. It's not closed. I should have let you
Okay.
speak first. That's
Oh,
where
yeah, it's not closed.
that's where I made
No,
the mistake.
Hearing's open.
I made the mistake in voicing my opinion and then asking everybody else's before I let you talk. So the mistake was on my part.
No.
But please continue.
So I just wanted to explain what has been done, because a lot has been done in between the last meeting, which was, we had a plan at the second meeting, it was all on paper. Last meeting, we had a plan on paper and some things have been going on, some things have been put in. Today, all these things that the board has listed their concerns, right? We had the engineering company also list their concerns. The engineering company has listed them as the two-way entrance at Endicott Street, inadequate signage, roadway striping, no defined circulation pattern, inadequate striped parking spaces, and accommodations for pedestrians. All of those have been significantly upgraded, as you pointed out at the beginning. And it also mentions later on that a fitness facility, as they estimated the traffic flow, would not have a significant impact to the overall traffic flow within the site. So then what I did, so I said, okay, so everything that was the McKenzie Engineering has brought forward as concerns have been met to the nth degree and above and beyond. I think the most important development, if you will, change, is that new entrance. That there was a concern about pedestrians, my members, having to go around the building to odd entrances, right? That's now completely removed. No pedestrian, no member, I'm not a business from the Norwood Commerce Center would never ask anybody to have to walk around those two dangerous turns with cars, you know, but we've also put the Jersey barriers up, direct access to the parking lot, with a walkway. So what I did was I went through and I took all the photos of the metal signs. There's over 50 metal signs. There's, I believe 12 Jersey barriers, protecting the sidewalk, if people do need to walk through there. And sorry, so I thought in my head, I was planning it that we might be able to go through each photo, but the lot that I took a number of photos with the clear signage, designated parking, that lot alone adds 22 parking spaces, which is 2 more than the required for a fitness facility. And then it kind of ends with the murals, the other signage around the Norwood Commerce Center. So, you know, if there was a concern about this becoming a 7-day-a-week situation, when the antique boutique shops were going in, I don't know if your concern was about the Norwood Commerce Center as it was then, or if you're concerned about the Norwood Commerce Center, one business being a 7-day-a-week situation with the developments that have happened now. So if you had initial concerns, that's one thing, but if you still have concerns, that's another. At these meetings, we've listened to the concerns and tried to deal with each and every single one. I mean, I'll tell you, so I wanted to, before this was a topic, I wanted to put a door on that, in the same exact spot that the door is put in. I got sticker shock about how much that was gonna cost me. It would never be feasible for me to put in a door. That's just one small thing that the Norwood Commerce Center, the ownership group, has done. None of this has been budget or inexpensive. It's come at a great cost, and you know, so I appreciate that they believe in, you know, my business and putting a fitness facility in there. And as you know, you're concerned about whether or not I'll get the good foot traffic, right? Almost every CrossFit gym is, you know, buried deep in an industrial park. It's word of mouth, you know, and that's kind of the way we like it, kind of off in the corner. And you know, that's kind of my problem to have to deal with. It would be nice to be right on a main street, you know, big glass windows and neon signs pointing in, but I can combat that with a number of different ways. So the success of my business doesn't matter if it's on the street or buried deep. And then it not being a controlled environment, if you think about what it was before and what it is now, I don't know if an uncontrolled environment necessarily describes it. It's also a place being developed. It was an old mill that's being renovated for the community, right? And as it grows and more development happens, things will also improve. However, there is a one-way traffic sign. Everything is clearly labeled, and you know, maybe we need to say a dead-end sign down one way. But the way I saw it coming into this was that there was a problem or a situation with the board had with the Norwood Commerce Center, the pedestrian safety, the traffic flow, the parking, and that was one nugget, right? The other nugget was if a fitness facility in the Norwood Commerce Center would be adding fuel to the fire. So those are the two situations that I saw being the problem. And you know, hopefully these photos, hopefully the McKenzie Engineering list, that all the things that have been met, you know, show that it won't be a detriment to the safety of the pedestrians, and I'm clearly I'm seeing it from a different perspective than you. If you know, if you have questions for me, but you know.
At some point then, Mike, with you good?
Sorry?
Yeah, you good? You all set?
Yeah, yes, I mean, I could keep going, but this is the fourth meeting, so I don't know how many more minutes people wanna hear me talk.
It's all right. All right, any audience, Di, you wanna say something?
Just real quick, thank you for your time and for accepting my letter, and we just wanted to let you know that we had made some of the improvements that we've been talking about. I think you all acknowledge that you've seen them. You know, again, I just wanna remind everybody, this is not gonna be a vacant building. At some point in time, something will go in if it's not the gym. So I think that some of the issues that may still be concerning are still gonna be there. It's the center, it's almost fully, leased out, it's almost full of tenants. So I think we're at the height of what's gonna be down at the center, as far as people coming and going, so I just wanted to point that out, so.
Okay.
And I'd also like to add, if I may, that we've been,
You do me a favor, just say your name one more time.
that's
I
okay,
apologize.
Keith Beardsley and the management team at the Norwood Commerce Center. So, as the, working for the ownership, we've heard what you've had to say, and we've taken your constructive criticism and really gone, I feel, above and beyond in making things very clear, very safe, in a very good environment. We believe in Dan, we think his business is not only a benefit for the center, but also for the community. And I hope that you believe in him and us as much as we've given him credit and credence. So please help us.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody else in the audience?
Mention Cheryl Elliott, hi.
Hi.
I just wanna add also that to the traffic flow, we have ordered the spikes, so if people do go down the one way, they're gonna get flat tires. So we've invested in those devices, so that's how we will monitor people not going down the wrong way, because they won't be able to.
You gotta tell that to the machine shop.
That's rocks.
I was there
It's
no
the
more than,
truck driver, how good the truck driver is. Good
Freight-
truck drivers can make that turn.
so it's 8 o'clock. I was there at 4 o'clock. I talked to the young fella in there, and I think it was his father or somebody at the desk, and talking traffic, and he goes, well, yeah, the 18-wheelers, not gonna go follow that one way because they can't make that turn down there, so.
They do make it.
All
I've
right.
been there
I
all
think
day long.
the turn that they might be referencing is as you come back up towards the pond,
Mhm.
having to take that right to go back around the pond, and they would just go straight. So the spike strip would be set. Everybody would still be going up that ramp the same way, even an 18-wheeler
You
truck.
can't go down it though, yeah.
But you can't go down it, and that was the big problem that a number of us have gotten into was we're going up, somebody's coming down, and that's not a situation. I'm just gonna throw this one last bit before I turn it over. I really hope I took some time really deliberately choosing these photographs. I hope the photographs give a visual. If you haven't gone down there recently, give a clear visual example of. We saw your concerns. The ownership management heard the concerns. This is a clear understanding that we heard them, and it also shows a clear call to action to, rectify those concerns, to change, to do the best that we could. And again, it's a mill in development and being refurbished, right? But it also shows, with the new murals and the colorful, vibrant community that's already there and continue to be there, that it's trying to be a place that more inviting, community centric, and opportunistic. And I just hope that gets communicated through some of those photographs and through myself.
One comment before we close, because I want you to understand, I haven't looked at your pictures, but I don't need to, because I have visited this site more than any site that has come before this board, this board, in the 40 years that I have sat on it, and I was there today, so I've seen them all.
Mhm.
But I just wanted to have you understand why I wasn't examining your pictures.
That's fine. That's
I've
your
seen the
choice.
site, I know what's there. That's all I have.
Anything else from anybody? All right, pleasure of the board.
Is somebody gonna close the hearing before, so we can?
Motion to close?
There's a motion to close the hearing. Any-
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Anderson. So vote on the closings. All those in favor by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye, it's a 5-0. And
All right,
discussion of the board, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, go ahead, sir.
I would like to review the situation at this particular site and tell you where I come out with it. We all know, of course, that this is the old Winslow Tannery. It's a difficult site. Jack, of course, knows because he worked for the Winslow Tannery.
I did.
No, he didn't. They,
No, I
they
worked
closed in
I
1952.
worked
You
for
weren't there
Forte
before
Fairburn. There
that.
was
You
a
weren't there before that.
Cashmere place.
What it has basically
This is
become
big.
since that time is an obvious mixed use. It's certainly demonstrated by the list of people that are there, excuse me, people that are there that has been provided to us. And as you look at that, it is certainly a very, very wide list of people. You've got property management, wood craftsmen, asbestos adjustments, many storage places, home staging or roofer, natural light artist, contractor, doggy daycare, machine shop. That, I take it, is the one that is in the same building as the proposed site. An installation company, more storage, and on it goes. There's a huge variety of places that are there, largely down in the back area of the premises. The first contact that I can recall that I had with this area was in 1996, when a woman named Patricia Williams, who was doing business as the Honeymoon Meadery, came in, and she was looking for a permit in order to sell and to give wine tastings. The board at that time consisted of Joe Randall, Eddie Wisniewski, and myself. In the course of the hearing, Randall commented that this site was basically a manufacturing operation, but with a limited amount of retail time. The result of that hearing was that we gave this lady 2 days, Thursday and Saturday, from 3 to 6 on each day, a limited retail use. The next contact that I had with it was basically back in 2012, and I think there's been some reference made to this. And that was when the Norwood Commerce Center came in with an application for a special permit, represented at the time by Attorney Garrity Hall, as they are today. They came here in response, as I recall it, and the record for that hearing seems to indicate such, to a cease and desist letter that was sent out by Mark Schubert prohibiting retail use that was apparently ongoing at that time. In the course of the hearing, what developed was that apparently the arts and crafts places that are now functioning there were storing products on site. The people then purchased it online, came to the site to pick up the product, and they evidently, because of the arrangement they had, did not think that they were actually engaged in retail sales, even though apparently there were some that took place actually on site. But in any event, Mark Schubert thought they were engaged in retail sales and sent them the cease and desist order. So they came in, the said Attorney Hall was representing them. What they sought at the time were the permits for the periodic retail sales of goods. It obviously related to the various arts and crafts places that are all located, as you know, in the front of the structure. At the time, one of the concerns had to do with traffic, and I think that remains a concern today. And the board was satisfied with respect to the traffic at that time, particularly because Mrs. Hall stated in the course of the hearing that they were aware of the traffic concerns of the abutters, but felt that it would not be substantially impacted because it will not be on weekdays. It will only be there on weekends. That's obviously not what we're dealing with now. What was eventually done, my recollection was that they had asked for and were going to be given 2 days. Somehow or other it's turned into 3 days, but be that as it may, it is a limited amount of time on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sunday, and the hours are, of course, posted on the sign that is at the entrance to the property. The board expressed a number of concerns at the time, and as was mentioned a short time ago, Mr. Mulvihill, who was sitting as chairman at the time, did make a comment that he didn't want this turned into a Raynham flea market, and he indicated that Endicott Street was not equipped for that type of use. In fact, there were 2 instances of that in which he mentioned it, and I think the board shared that concern. Appearing at the time was Mr. Jerry Gillis, who I believe at the time was a director of Norwood Commerce. And at the time, Mr. Gillis indicated that he understood the concerns that the chairman had expressed, and said that they had had internal discussions, I assume among the other people at Norwood Commerce, and had decided that the folks who were in there now, namely the arts and crafts people, would be the limit of what they would talk about to do this retail. He also commented, Mr. Gillis did, that in his experience he stated that this is not a retail location and doesn't think there is much prospect of it turning into, I think Mr. Mulvihill had also mentioned, a Hannaford's or a Rockies, and he said he didn't think there was much likelihood of it turning into that. With respect to the small coffee house near the pump house, he indicated that it was not going to be a restaurant, that it would have simply prepackaged food and didn't fit the definition of a restaurant and would be very small. What is particularly important about this, it seems to me, is that this set the pattern for how we were dealing with this particular location and have dealt with it in that fashion for the same reason. There were a good deal of concern that if a 7-day permit was given, that Endicott Street would simply not be able to handle that sort of impact. And I believe that, again, the chairman indicated a concern shared by the board that Endicott was not built for traffic of high volume. He indicated he was concerned as to what will come next, as I think we all were. And essentially what we have now is what has come next. And the question, I think, is, do we depart from the manner in which we have treated this site for some considerable number of years and embark on something entirely new? It seems to me that the premises have worked quite well as we have designed them to work, and I have some serious issues about whether or not we should make changes to that. I have been down to the site, as I indicated, on a number of times, number of occasions, and the area around this particular building bothers me. The roads, as you know, are very narrow. The buildings are very close to one another, rather convoluted. There is poor visibility around the various different structures that are down there. There are no sidewalks. The presence of the Jersey barriers, I would suggest, does provide some protection, if you will, but it's a bit of a two-edged sword because it also is some evidence of the danger of walking around the place without Jersey barriers. And I can't recall any retail establishments in this town, in this state, perhaps even in this country, that I have entered, that you've been ushered to the entrance by Jersey barriers. It just is not something you see with respect to retail uses. Concerning the changes that have been made, there's been quite a bit made of the developments that have gone on, including, for instance, there was some talk, good deal of talk about the one-way streets. Chairman Mulvihill made some reference to a conversation he had with respect to some trucks. I was down there today, drove through the area. While I was there, I encountered two vehicles. Both of them were driving the wrong way on the one-way street.
Was
When
that
I
one
got
of
to the
them?
point where the dogs were, coming around in that direction, I was almost struck by a college hunk truck coming the wrong way on the one-way street to make a right turn in front of me. I continued on, having avoided having hit it, made my way around, up, took the right turn as required, went down by the OMG Cafe, and around and out the correct way. As I was about to enter onto Endicott Street, a car came roaring up the entrance road in the wrong way, despite the arrows on the street, and went sailing across right in front of me and on out Endicott Street. So what we have is, in the course of, I'll say 5 minutes to make it generous, might be less than that, the only two vehicles that I observed were paying no attention to the one-way street and driving in the opposite direction, which leads me to wonder, if it happened that often in that short a time, how often is it going to continue to happen? So it makes me wonder about the effectiveness of the one-way street. Turning briefly to the zoning, particular zoning issues that are involved, I think everyone is aware that we're all aware, I know we're all aware, that one of the principal functions of zoning is to separate different uses into different areas. So I think that when you have, as we do in this case, the right by special permit to mix some of the uses in one area, I think we need to be careful to try to be as cautious as possible, and to the extent that we can maintain some separation between the different uses, I think we should do it. And that, I submit, is exactly what we have done at this site. The retail uses, the arts and crafts, the OMG coffee place, and even the entertainment center are all basically in one area of this structure. They're arrayed along the front of the building, the coffee shop is across the way in the trailer, and the entertainment is right around the corner. This proposal is nowhere near that. It's down in the middle of the other use area. The machine shops, the storage, the guys that are in working on cars, the carpenters, on and on and on, and you can go through the list and see how many of them there are. There's a reason, I would submit, that when you drive through there, you don't see many people walking. It's because it's dangerous to walk. Now, the people that work there, carpenters, whatever they might be, the guy that looks after the cars that the Mason stores down there, they're familiar with the area, and so I suppose they can take some particular care with respect to it. Turning briefly to the zoning book, one of the principal purposes of the zoning bylaw, as is set forth in the introduction to it, is to promote the general welfare of the town of Norwood, to protect the health and safety of its inhabitants, to encourage the most appropriate use of land throughout the town, and to increase the amenities of the town. I'm not entirely sure that this proposal does any of those things. When you look at the special permit section, it requires a written determination that the proposed use will not, may not, or perhaps won't, will not have adverse effects which overbalance the beneficial effects for either the neighborhood or the town in view of the particular characteristics of the site and the proposal in relation to that site. One of the other things within the bylaw that we're supposed to look at is whether the pedestrian and vehicular movement to, from, and within the site is safe and convenient. I'm not convinced that it's either. I think there's a problem. Another thing that occurs, and I think we need to take a look at this, the chairman read a couple of letters, and I'd like to refer to them if I might. That's if I can find them. They're here somewhere. Here we are. The letter that the chairman read was one dated June 13. As I say, written, I assume, by Tony Esco, although Steve might claim it. There was a part of the letter that, the chair read most of the letter, but there was a part of the letter that was not, I don't think, read entirely. I assume because the chair was of the view that he had read the most significant parts of the letter, and indeed he had read many significant parts. But there is one other section that is, as it turns out, is important, and it's the end of the letter, where Tony says, "The reason for us asking for an appointment with the planning board is to request that the planning board, along with the economic development and community planning director and other appropriate town boards, take protective steps to enter into deliberative discussions or meetings with the owners and stakeholders of nearby property. The goal is to see if there is a way, through good long-term planning initiatives, economic incentives, use of grants, etc., that can result in substantive improvements to the property that ameliorate the safety and traffic concerns, beautify and protect the brook area, and maximize the return on investment for the property owners." Now, as it turns out, in response to that letter, the ESCOs, and I don't know whether others appeared or not, had a meeting with the planning board, I'm informed, last night. This is on the basis of a conversation that I had with the assistant planner, Patrick Duchesne. And apparently the upshot of that meeting is that the planning board is interested in doing some sort of a review or study of this area, apparently with a view to the possibility of either changing the bylaw via town meeting, or entering into what would be one of these overlay districts that they sometimes have that might permit certain things to be done. I think the reason that I think that's important, and I'll come back to it in a minute, is I think we need to give them an opportunity to take a look at it and do what they think ought to be done. There is also a letter that, again from the OSCOs, again I assume from Tony. In fact, I think it just says from Tony, so I guess she did write it. We may have seen this before, I'm not sure. It's a June 3 letter. She talks about the general number of businesses down there, and she says, and she's talking about some of the new applications that are coming in, and she says, however, I think this is where the complex is headed, in other words, new applications, based on the recent applicants and the types of businesses being requested. If this type of growth is allowed to continue, it will be crowded, not safe, and Endicott Street will be chaos. She also goes on and says, and this is now, she's now talking about the meeting with the planning board, the potential meeting, and the study that they would perhaps engage in to come up with a comprehensive plan of what to do down here. And she says, without constructive discussion and comprehensive analysis of this property, we feel you, the zoning board, will find no end of the complex requests that will come before you. We urge you not to approve special permits for businesses that bring in daily substantial customer traffic within the complex. She goes on to say, Norwood Commerce Center could become a well-planned development, or it can become a crowded, unattractive, unwieldy jumble of businesses with 24/7 scheduled hours. Meanwhile, the Commerce Center can continue to seek businesses that do not promote significant increases in daily customer traffic within the industrial complex. If special permits for 7-day-a-week businesses with consumer traffic are granted, and the chair has made this comment, or not the chair, sorry, not the chair anymore, Ms. Mulvihill made the comment, that are granted, other requests will quickly follow. The antique shops are allowed only 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, for their business sales. Surely, someone there will ask for more time eventually as well. Let me just summarize all of this junk, and I'm sorry for talking so long. It's impossible for lawyers to speak briefly. I think having a fitness center is fine. Perhaps in some other location at some other time. But it seems to me that at this time, in this place, that it is simply not the thing to do. My suggestion would be that consideration be given, and obviously this would have to involve the applicant, to the permit being withdrawn without prejudice in order to give the planning board time to engage in whatever study they're going to engage in, to attempt to develop a comprehensive plan as to how to deal with this area, as to whether or not rezoning will result in some fashion. Otherwise, it seems to me you're left, as Tony suggests, with this board facing an array of special permit requests that are going to create, what was it she called it? I think an unwieldy and so forth place, rather than a solid, well-planned development. That would be my suggestion. I think it's the best way to deal with this. The reason I suggest the withdrawal is that it would leave the applicant with the opportunity to come back in without a 2-year delay in the event of a denial. Once the planning board has done their work and has recommended whatever it is they're going to recommend. It seems to me that it would be a very sensible, appropriate way to deal with this application. Thank you. Sorry to take so long.
That's all right, thank you. You wanna follow that up?
Comment. I have given many comments in the past, so I feel the board knows my concerns.
Anybody have anything else to add?
Oh, jeez.
Well, like I said before, I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with it per se. I'm concerned about what I said before, you know, where this is headed long-term. I know we can't foresee what's coming down the pipe, what's gonna happen, who's next, type of thing, but, you know, the old axiom, are we opening Pandora's box by saying yes to this? I don't think it's gonna, I mean, I hear Tony's point, I hear Phil's point, I just don't think it's gonna be that trip generator that is fearful, because of what the use is. They go into the, gym, they work out, then they leave. They don't mill about. But yeah, I hear in the back of my head about what we want this park to be and where it was initially. And I was very concerned at the time that it was gonna turn into a free-for-all down there, and, not that it is right now, because it's a going concern. Some of those shops down there are thriving, you know, but it is what it is. It's an old mill building. You can't regenerate unless you knock buildings down, you can't regenerate the traffic flow down there. You gotta deal with what you've got. You know, in a perfect world, as Tony said, and others have said, maybe if the bridge was opened up, we could open that up and get over to Davis. But that isn't happening anytime soon. I just don't, like I said, I just don't necessarily have a problem with it, but my heart is telling me that I don't think I can support this, but I don't know.
I'll be honest with you, I don't have a problem opening Pandora's box. I've always said each case is built and judged, although I do respect the opinions of everybody's. You know, I mean, I'd rather see the business coming in town myself, but you have heard the opinions. Jack, you got anything else you wanna add?
No, I just, like I said, I was back there again today, and it's just a hodgepodge of everything going on. It's like nothing's under control, but I'd still like to see those buildings used, but it's almost like there's no plan for anything. It's whoever wants to come in as a tenant will find a spot for you, and there's like no control. I mean, I was kind of, like I said, way back when I was in school, I worked down there, and you kind of knew who everybody was. Now it's just a collection of all kinds of things going on. And, I mean, I'd like to see it work. I'd like to see it develop. I think it's good for the town, but for some reason, I think it's just gotten out of control down there, and it's like anybody that wants to rent some space can get in there, so I have a problem with that.
Mr. Chairman.
You know, in view of all that, I mean, I would push my request again,
Oh, yeah, Mr.
because I think it's in the best interest of the applicant to let them maintain an opportunity to come back in.
No, I
Yeah,
think we're
agree
getting
with
there.
that.
I think
I
we're definitely
agree.
getting
I'm
there.
gonna give
I
the
think
applicant
that's-
5 minutes.
Mr.
Yeah.
Sure.
I agree with that too, because
Yeah.
he's done a lot of work. I'd like to see him.
Yeah, oh, I agree. It's
We
a lot
all
of work.
agree with that.
No,
I
we
He's
think.
got a
want
lot of
somebody-
money, he's got a lot of
But we
money.
want- But if the
We-
planning board comes up with something, and if he does withdraw without prejudice,
Then he can come
then
back
he
in.
can come back
But
and
we
then
want
there's
something to
no.
happen there.
Yeah.
And I think it should happen there.
But
Well,
just so that,
but-
we're all, wait a minute, we're all realists. This isn't
All
gonna
right.
happen overnight at the planning board.
Oh, I
This is
understand.
months
Planning
and
board's
months
another
away.
issue, yeah.
You know, this space probably will get rented, as Attorney Hall said, to somebody else, and Mr. Jones will probably be on his way if this board says no to him. Mr. Chairman, I recommend we give the applicant 5 or 10 minute recess with his
Sure.
attorney to decide whether he wants to go with this.
I have no
Sure.
problem with that.
Do you like that, Mr. Jones?
Sure, but I can't add anything else as far as comments, right? Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't mind a 5 minute.
Why don't you take 5 minutes and discuss what
I'll
might
make
be
the
a
motion
best
for the
avenue.
recess of 5 minutes. to be like-
Second.
Sure, motion on the board,
Second.
5 minutes,
Yeah.
seconded by Packy, Mulville, voted on 5-0. So, all right, we're back in action here, to reconvene. Reconvene, do we,
Yes.
all right,
Back in session.
what do we have?
Can I explain the reason for my decision at all?
You can explain what it, yep, sure, I'll give you that.
All right, this is my last shot at opening up my own business. I have extended this, just with this place alone, for nearly 6 months, and I have no more resources. So I held out on good faith, and I'll never be back in this position again. So this was my one shot, and it's now shot, and that's extremely unfortunate because I had faith in the system, and the fact that it was kept going to a continuance gave me hope. So I am extremely it's just very unfortunate. So I'm going to withdraw. But I can't say how disappointed I am. I disagree with a number of your points, but that's my opinion. You guys obviously have your opinion, but I don't know what I'm going to do
So
now.
we need a motion to withdraw at this point?
Mm-hmm.
I'll make the motion then, just to get it on the floor.
Okay.
I'll second it.
So there's a motion on the
Seconded by-
floor to allow the applicant to withdraw.
Seconded by.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Perry, without prejudice, certainly.
Yeah, oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, if I could amend the motion before we vote on it, if you do come back in, I would like to have the board be prepared to waive the filing fee, so you wouldn't have to pay it again.
That's fine. Yeah,
All right,
I think that's
yeah.
you can add that. to the
unanimous
motion.
as well, but we'll add that to the amendment too,
Yeah.
also seconded by Mr. Perry. So, the motion to allow the withdrawal is voted,
Aye.
five to nothing. Don't give up on that.
So that means you can come back.
All right, don't give up on that, please, and
It-
stay on
it's
top.
it's a better result, because if you get a denial, and you might, as it stands at the moment, you're out for 2 years and you can't come back. And that's not a good thing for
So
people.
this way you can get back.
We try to do that as
Can't come
much
back.
as we
This is
can
it.
for
This is
people,
my one
because
shot.
we don't like to leave people hanging 2 years. I mean, you can do it if you can go back, but you gotta go back to the planning board and convince the planning board, and, you don't wanna do that, I mean, it's a much better way to deal with it. I'm sorry, I voted for all the other things down there, but I just think this is not gonna work. But hopefully the planning board will do something quicker than they usually do, and, you'll be able to do something with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Right.
Any further business?
I guess, adjourn?
Oh, yeah, well, Mr. Chairman, I'm not gonna be here on the 13th,
16th?
the 16th hearing, so, just as a,
Phil, did you say you were gonna be away then too? Was that the date you were away?
No, I'm August 6th, there's nothing on at the moment, I just told a reminder, August 6th, in case something went on, but no, I'm all right for the 16th.
Oh, okay.
so I don't know who you grab. What about the new girl?
Yeah, she is.
Her, because, Tom has a conflict anyway, so I asked George. if
Yeah,
she-
77 Cameron, I gotta excuse myself.
I'll get
On the 16th?
Paul.
The 16th, yeah, it's my
Oh.
neighbor.
Oh, so we got all kinds of things going on.
Yeah,
on the 16th.
but it's, they'll do, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
It's a technicality, so.
So when
I
you
think
get
they'll be
Paul,
fine- they'll be
what
fine
we
with
have to do, get both Paul and the new girl?
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, she
You
might
don't
even,
wanna come
it's
down
Georgia.
and switch to
George,
your-
George is her name.
So where do we sit on
They
that,
might be all right before, but whatever you want to do.
Associates, are we at a full complement?
We have Georgia, Mary, and.
So we have
Paul.
3, yeah, we have 3.
But you can have 5, so you can, there are 2 more you can have.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't.
Oh, well, not, whether you
Yeah,
want them or not, but
yeah,
you
no.
can do 2 more. Because remember back when, remember when Joe was sick?
Yeah,
And we had the 3, because Joe went on as a part-time guy. But then he was never able to sit because he was sick all the time. And we had to continue 2 or 3 cases, and
mm-hmm,
I think that was when we wrote to them and said, can you make it 5 so we can
yeah.
have a couple more.
So before we vote to adjourn, I always appreciate the advice, and I do
I
publicly
think-
apologize
are we off
for
the
my.
air?
No,
Yeah, okay,
That's all
so
right,
we
I
have
don't
a
care.
chair.
I don't
No,
care.
when you said adjourn, I said, oh, we
I
on the
publicly
air.
apologize for my
Yeah.
procedural error this evening. Thank you for pointing it out and helping guide me once again to see the light. So with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
So moved. Second.
Seconded by
Second.
Mr. Perry, Mrs. Anderson, seconded basically by everybody, so.
Everybody's
We'll
second.
consider that a 5-0.
Why don't we all vote against it? No, no.
I'd like to see something,